Hey, folks, how's it going today? Are you making any money? The reason I'm asking you that is today's topic is about money. I like money. No, wait a second. I love money. What about you? Are you working? Are you saving? Are you working for a living? Saving for a living? What is going on? Because I got something to tell you. I learned a little bit later in life that it's better to save now for tomorrow rather than spend today and not have for later on. So if you're young enough, do this. If anything, learn to save some money. Learn to put aside, I don't know, $200 a month straight out of your paycheck right into something like an IRA account, or maybe just some kind of savings account that's going to give you interest. Just as a quick example, and this is just simple math and it's not an exact. So say that you're 20 years old and you're going to save $200 a month consistently, $200 a month, $50 a week for the next 30 years. You're only going to be 50 years old, right? Compounded interest. Now, that's a big thing that you're going to hear a lot of people talk about. But with compounded interest, after the 30 years of $200 a month, that's, let me push that up, that is about $72,000. But wait a second. That's $72,000 of what you would have saved, but the 7% annual compounded interest, the interest on that is something like $315,000. Really, I'm going with $200 a month because if you put $50 a week, you're probably going to get a little bit more. So learn to do that. But if you're older, still learn to save money for that retirement. Are you thinking about retiring pretty soon? Are you looking forward to retirement? Are you planning on retiring at any point in time in your life? All those things are important to learn to save starting today. Anyhow, my guest is Rodger Alan Friedman. He's got a name that sounds like money, doesn't he? So we're going to talk about that retirement, savings, money, compounded interest, all that stuff. So please stick around, watch, and listen. So let's get going.
Welcome to Amazing People, Amazing Things with your host, Chuck the Tuck.
This, we got this, we got this, we got all sorts of books.
Yeah, I mean, you are an author of many books and
Seven,
a lot,
yeah.
and a lot of them to do with wealth, everything around wealth, helping your children, how you're going to help yourself help your children, how you're going to help yourself get to
Yeah.
retirement and things like that.
Yeah.
I kind of want to skip over a lot of that. There's a lot of talk out there about compounded interest and things like that, which I wish I would have been taught or told at a younger age.
Sure.
But there are so many Americans right now who are near that retirement age or in that early retirement age who don't have money.
Yeah. And I found in my travels of 45 years throughout the financial industry, it all comes down to two things: decisions that you make and your behavior. Those are the two things. And it's basically how you spend your time. And that determines whether you will be successful, rich, poor, healthy or not. A lot of that is determined by those two things, decisions and behavior. And this book that I wrote, the 18 Wealth Lessons, it's all about decisions and behavior. Okay. Not about mutual funds or municipal bonds or options or anything like that.
Well, let me introduce who you are. Rodger Friedman. You are my genius and hero today because I'm going to learn from you because I am one of those guys in that, nearing that retirement bracket. So I'd like to really find out from you, what is it that we need to do? Like you said, it's kind of like a mindset change, a decision that you have to make, choices that you make.
Yes.
So what would you say is your number one thing that you had to change, whether it be your mind or habits?
I had to change how I spent my time. And one of the things that I did is I created a side hustle. Okay. So a lot of people that work in an office or a factory, for example, they come home and they're probably only working 8 or 9 hours a day. So that means there's a whole bunch of hours left over that you could be productive.
Yeah.
Most people choose not to be. They watch TV, they go to the bar, whatever it might be. But most people tend not to be productive. And you have to figure out how to make your time worth it. Okay, what am I going to fit into these hours so that they're not wasted, that they are productive?
You're right. I mean, we create a habit. Like I said,
Yeah,
we come home from work. First, we'll complain about work. We'll complain about whatever it is for however much time,
right.
and we're wasting time.
Yeah,
And again, I'm going to say I've been very guilty of that, and still am. And it's how do you break out of that habit? What do you do? Like I said, you create a side hustle. How does somebody break that habit of wasting time and create something?
well, one of the things with side hustles is to figure out what you enjoy doing that others might not, and how you might be able to make some money at that. But even as a precursor to that, I went to a seminar a long time ago, and Jim Rohn spoke. And I don't know if you know who Jim Rohn is. He birthed Tony Robbins, metaphorically speaking.
No, really, yes.
Okay. And he said, are you reading? How many books do you read a month? Because if you're not reading, you're going up against people that are, and in all likelihood, they will best you. I thought that was very interesting. So I started reading one book a month, then 2 books a month, and then I got up to 5 books a month. Okay. And I know that during my time as a senior vice president of wealth management at Morgan Stanley, or as a senior investment management consultant at Smith Barney, the fact that I read voraciously and I was going up against people that weren't, I won more often than not the business because I knew more than they did. And I was able to enunciate very practically what people needed to focus on. Okay. And with no PowerPoints, just a back of an envelope, I could sketch out what they needed to do without a 30-page PowerPoint.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And like I said, we have always heard about reading and knowledge and things like that, about being powerful, power. And I think a lot of people today have left reading behind, or at least a lot of
You're
folks that
absolutely
I
right
know.
in favor of TikTok videos and YouTube.
Right. They want snippets. That's not reading.
And
They're looking for
they
snippets.
communicate with their thumbs.
It's. I'm going to go as far as saying that reading of anything is going to help you because you're going to be able to recognize new words. Like I said, you're going to be able to enunciate. You're going to be able to speak. And then if you're really going to read, and if you're going to read a topic or subject, it does make you smarter in that realm
Yeah.
of subject matter.
Yeah. And you have to learn how to communicate your ideas. Back in college, and I went to State University of New York, college at Armpit, between Rochester and Buffalo, and it was cold. But I remember, if memory serves, and it was a long time ago, I think I was president of the debate club for a couple of weeks. And it put me on a path where I was able to speak in front of groups extemporaneously, no notes, and I was fine. And I was interesting, I was informative. I wasn't exactly funny, never have been, but I was able to communicate my thoughts well and get my points across. So being able to communicate is very, very important without yelling at people.
Yeah,
You know.
very true. So, along with that communication and reading, how does that help one prepare themselves for this? I'm just going to say retirement, whether they're ready to, but we're all looking at a point. We're looking at the end of the tunnel, the light at the end of the tunnel. That is called retirement, because we'll say, I've been working so hard, but I don't see the end.
Well, retirement means different things to different people. I read a long time ago that when a farmer retires livestock, to the fields, that's because the livestock was no longer productive. They retired the animal. And I don't know that people want to think of their retirement as now being unproductive for the rest of their life. Now, you could find something, let's say, I don't know, let's say you were a bookkeeper, okay? So there's probably something outside of bookkeeping that interests you, that you could do a blog or a newsletter on, or have groups of people that would pay to be involved or to listen to you if you have something interesting to say. Some people it's woodworking, some people it's working with metal or art or music. There's any number of things. Have you ever gone on the website called Upwork or Fiverr?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in the early days, I tried Fiverr. It didn't really work out that way well, and I morphed to using Upwork. And my guess is that over the years, I have spent $15,000 or $20,000 at Upwork, having various virtual assistants do things for me. And it's amazing if you just look at the categories of side hustles that people are offering to help you complete a project for $10 an hour, $50 an hour, $500 an hour, based on their expertise and experience. And if you spend even 20 minutes perusing all the categories of Upwork and tell me you can't find something that you could offer people, I don't think you're awake.
That's the one thing you gave an example about a librarian, and you said, well, I'm sure there's something that runs parallel with being like a librarian or something that's
And being
going to
passionate
interest you.
about.
Yes, yeah. And I think that's a lot of, we forget about that. Oh, I work in a factory and I do this. Well, what about it that you liked, isn't there a side hustle there? A bolt fastener or something, What is it that you like that you're familiar with?
For example, the factory worker, what do you like to do on Saturdays and Sundays in your garage? That your wife says, hey, keep that down. I'm trying to think here. It's got to be something that you're probably good at because you've been interested in it and you've done it for a long time.
Yeah. Is that one of the 18 wealth transformations, or what is there something different out of there?
Well,
in your book?
It touches on that. But, when I wrote the book, the first thing that I did was I wrote the table of contents because I wanted to figure out what is the skeleton that I'm going to hang the skin on. What has to be included and what need not be included. So, for example, some of them were decide. Okay? Most people run from making decisions. And if they do make a decision, they're not all in. They're not committed. There's no persistence. Okay? So you got to figure out really what you want to do. You also got to figure out who you need around you to help you execute the plan if you can't execute it all by yourself. Yeah. So there are just so many things, and a lot of it has to do with goal setting. And I don't have to give you a lesson on goal setting, but if I don't set goals, I don't get anything done. Right. I walk around with a with a little booklet, and I write in here every time I have an idea. Okay, I know that it'll be gone if I don't write it out, and then I can refer back to it later on. It happens when I go to bed. I'll turn the lights out, and then I'll turn them right back on and start writing, because I don't want to lose what I thought about, because in the morning it'll be gone. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're the same way.
I think about it and it's gone. Yeah.
You have to capture it in the moment.
You do. And I like the fact that you use a pen and paper, pencil and paper, a
There's
book.
no app. Thank you very much.
I do the exact same thing with a lot of note taking. It's still done pen and paper.
Yes.
And I encourage viewers, the audience out there, to do the same. Don't rely on your app or your phone, because there are too many steps, I think, in order to put that down. And then that thought is gone.
Have you ever noticed that when you're at the airport, when you're at the gate, waiting to get online and get onto the plane, I'm sitting there, I'm very comfortable, I have a bottle of water, and I'm reading a book. And I look around me, and literally 9 out of 10 people are looking at their phones.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Watching a movie, watching a video, whatever. And I'm just thinking to myself, put down the damn phone and pick up a book. Sometimes I'm the only one reading a book.
Oh, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of this. The thumbs are
There's
moving.
there's a lot of thumb action going on. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah. They're reading the message that they're sending and receiving. That's different from reading a book.
Have you ever heard of Dan Kennedy?
I have not.
Okay. This is a writer downer. Okay. So Dan is probably my primary mentor. Dan S., like Sam Kennedy. He's out of Cleveland. He created something called magnetic marketing decades ago.
I've
Heard
heard
of
that.
magnetic marketing?
Yes.
Okay. So he is magnetic marketing. He's the millionaire maker. He never went to college. Due to health issues, he's not doing this anymore. But, he was on the #1 success tour for 9 years in a row, filling stadiums of 25 to 30,000 people, talking after Colin Powell, presidents, football heroes, you name it. And he made tens of millions of dollars. He was very, very interested in horse racing, growing up near the stables in Ohio. And he would race 3 days a week in a sulky. And he owned 28 horses. Okay. And, by the way, he's written about 30 books. I've read every single one of them. They're behind me. Many of them I've read more than once. Okay. If someone wants to become successful, then spending a lot of time getting Dan Kennedy into your bones is probably a very good use of your time, very productive use.
Okay. We also want folks to read your book. Where are they going to go to find your book?
As always,
plural?
all books on the planet are on Amazon.com. My name is spelled differently, Rodger with a D, Rodger, Friedman. And I am not the Rodger Friedman who's a surgeon, and I'm not the Rodger Friedman who owns the antiquarian bookstore in Tuxedo, New York. That's not me. Okay.
I love it. Yeah. You kind of touched on one thing while you're talking about Dan, the author, health. If we're not healthy, it doesn't matter how little money that we have. You're not going to be enjoying life.
Look what happened to Steve Jobs. He was in the prime of his life. He was worth billions of dollars. And what was it? Liver cancer, I think, was his issue.
Yeah, I don't know if it's pancreatic.
Or pancreatic cancer, yes.
Or some, I'm not sure.
So it didn't matter how much money he had.
Right. It doesn't. So that's a precursor to everything. Take care of your body and your mind, your health, and then we'll get to that point where we can retire. And like you said, retirement to some is not being non-productive. It's just we have different things. People want to retire to be able to travel. People want to retire and work as side hustle.
Yeah, it's being
at
productive in a
full-time.
different realm.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if you like Tuscany, learn about it, have a group chat about it, write about it, get people involved and interesting, and charge people to go on a tour with you. Even if you've never been there, you could go on YouTube or the Discovery Channel and you could learn more about Tuscany sitting on your couch in 30 days than someone who might have been there for a week and didn't see everything they want. Okay?
Yeah.
It's
You're absolutely
amazing.
right.
You can create money out of thin air. And it's not a matter of being a genius. It's a matter of productive engagement. Okay.
Yeah. That's called doing, folks. It's a matter of doing,
because
right?
in this country, both financially and politically, what we're seeing is willful blindness.
Mm.
And we could talk about that for hours.
Yes. It's one of those scary, touchy ones. But you know what? Now you've twisted my arm. Before we end out everything, we're going to touch a little bit on that because I think that also has, in my point of view, has something to do with retirement and funds and things like that and how we think about it. Although I said we're going to skip the part about how to get to retirement and planning, now I'm thinking, maybe we do need a little bit of this help on planning, especially since you have been a longtime expert on planning and helping folks. What do we do to plan?
Well, the first thing I would tell you is, okay, for example, give me 3 careers that somebody might have before retirement. Just name 3 things.
Restaurant manager, car dealer, salesperson, and a tech marketing guy.
Perfect. Okay. So those 3 or 300,000 other career choices, none of those prepare you for creating a strategy that will work in retirement so that you could live a life that you want and have a synthetic paycheck. Because once you retire from selling cars, for example, for Ford, you probably don't have a pension anymore. Those have gone out the window, the defined benefit plans. But you probably had an IRA or maybe a 401k plan, okay? And no one really told you how to invest those properly either. So the point is that you have to get somebody who has worked in the past extensively with people like you. And I don't mean people with beards that are good looking, that live in Washington and have a cool blue shirt. What I mean is if you're married, that they don't only work with single people, okay? People that have worked with married people, if you have kids, people that have worked with married people with kids, okay, that weren't lawyers or CPAs or what have you, okay? So if you worked for the government, for example, then you want an advisor who has extensive experience working with people that worked in the government, okay? So, for example, if my specialty is working with entrepreneurs who own businesses with under 100 employees and have revenues of up to 25 million, for example, then I'm probably not the person to advise the nurse or the teacher or the government worker who works at Social Security. I'm not your guy. So the first thing is you have to find someone who could assist you because you don't have this knowledge working at a car dealership or a machine shop or being a janitor, Okay. It's outside of your realm of experience. But most people have a lot of problem asking for help and paying for it.
Yes, I was going to ask two things. So it sounds like to me you're saying find a financial advisor because that helps, and it's worth paying
Yeah,
the money.
and there's a difference between a stockbroker, which I was in a prior life, when I was a newly minted stockbroker at EF Hutton in, it's either September or October of 1984. Yes, I'm old. We only made money when we bought or sold something for a client. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, unit investment trusts. And that was the only way we made money back in the early 80s. But nowadays you have certified financial planners. You have chartered retirement planning counselors. That's me. You have other designations that show expertise and experience in retirement planning. So you want to go for someone who has those type of designations because it shows that they put in the extra work and the extra study to get the world-class credential, the most recognized credentials. That's number
Okay.
one. Number two is you look for someone with at least 10 years of experience. We all have an Uncle Justin who knows a guy named Jerry whose barber's daughter is a stockbroker. Everyone has one of those. Stay away. Run. Okay? Because they're out there to sell you something. Okay? You want to engage with someone who has credentials and a lot of experience dealing with people in your situation. And if that's all we said today, that would probably be enough. Does that make sense to you?
It does. It really does. And I think you hit home when you said that a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their head around paying for that.
Yes.
The thing is, you'll pay for it in the end.
Oh,
'Cause
yes.
If you don't
Yeah.
get the help,
So let me, years ago, I had a mentor named Nick Murray, who was the Zeus or the Odin of our industry. He had more knowledge than the next 100 people combined. And he had a story about the no-load cardiologist. So you remember mutual funds, they either had a load or no load, a commission or no commission. And a man goes to a cardiologist and says, I want a no-load cardiologist. Goes, oh, so you don't want to pay me? Yeah, I don't want to pay you, but I need my heart operated on. And the guy says, well, I went through 12 years of school. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to become one of the best cardiologists in this state. And you're asking me to do that for nothing. Well, guess what? I don't do that. I get paid for a living. I'm not a philanthropist. So if you need your heart operated on, you got a choice. You could either go for the cheapest guy or gal, or you could pay for expertise that might just save your life. Your choice.
yeah. And that's exactly what it is right now.
Exactly. I have no problem paying for expertise that I lack.
Yeah.
Because I'm buying their brains. I'm buying their experience. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do.
And we should all learn to do that. It's don't be so cheap and don't be afraid to spend the money. It's an investment in you and your future.
Yeah,
is
you're not
what I
buying a
think.
depreciating asset. You're
Right.
buying, expertise. And that's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who are in, we'll say, mid to late 50s or perhaps even 60 years old who may not be, well, I can't say may not be ready to retire, but they don't have the funds. What do they do? The people who are in that coming to the end of your work life, because there are a lot of younger people coming up and we're fighting for jobs. What do these seniors do? that are
Well,
not financially
I've
prepared?
done probably hundreds, maybe 1,000 retirement planning analyses, over my multi-decade career. And a lot of times we find that we crunch all the numbers and we find that you won't be able to do X. You don't have enough money.
Right.
So there are generally several alternatives to help them get to X. One of them might be increase your rate of savings. So I'll just make up numbers. So if you're saving $1,000 a month, figure out a way to save 1,200. For example, if you're spending X a month, find out a way to spend X minus 200. Lower your expenses. That might be going out to dinner once a month instead of 3 times a month. Okay? And the other is prepare mentally and otherwise to work maybe another 12, 18, or 24 months. Okay? If you do one of those things, it might improve your chances to get to your destination. If you do 2 or all 3 of them, it might vastly help improve your chances to get to where you want to go.
I'm going to be the typical guy
Okay.
and say, but Rodger, I don't make enough money and I'm 65 years old. I don't want to work for the rest of my life. I rent my house and I only have, and I heard a scary number as far as Americans in their savings account, but I'm not even going to go that low. I'll just say, but Rodger, I have $20,000 and I really want to retire at 65. Am I going to make it?
Well, I heard something a long time ago, which I think is apropos here. God doesn't care what you want. Okay. And
Yeah.
God's delays are not God's denials. Okay. You might want to retire at 65, but you may not be able to retire until age 72. Deal with it.
Yeah.
And the reason that you're having this issue today is because of decisions, sound familiar, and behaviors that you have made in the past. So when you look in the mirror, you could have a discussion with the one person on the planet who is responsible for the position you're in today.
Yep. That's a perfect way to move out of this and
You
segue.
can't blame it on Biden. You can't blame it on Trump or Kamala. This is you staring yourself in the mirror.
Yeah. And the folks who are out there, the audience, if you're young enough, and by all means, start now, even if you think you're not young enough.
So here's the rule. I'm going to give you tonight to think it over. Start tomorrow. Okay? I'm going to let you sleep on it. But start tomorrow.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Hey, folks, I hope you enjoyed that podcast as much as I did and learned a lot from Rodger. So remember, it's Rodger Allen Friedman. Now, Rodger is going to be a back-to-back guest, so I hope you check out the next podcast with Rodger. And we're going to talk about America, kind of a little bit about politics and still with finances and things like that. Rodger has another book out called Erasing America, Broken Politics, Broken Country. So please check that podcast out. And please remember, if you're a pet owner, be responsible, have your pets spayed and neutered, and please remember to like, share, comment, and follow, and subscribe.